What's up, guys and gals? Izzi's here, and I've been thinking. Sonic's about to turn 30, and in anticipation for whatever the future holds for the blue guy, I thought a 2-bit YouTuber like myself would get the urge to do something crazy. Like, I don't know, maybe play the series of games that made me the Sonic fan that I am today, and create a series of videos for you and myself. If I've gotten your attention, firstly, I'd like to thank you for clicking this video, and hopefully by the end of it, I would have rightfully earned your sub before its completion. Secondly, I hope to cover the majority of Sonic's mainline games, spin-offs, including Sonic Shuffle, and possibly much more, depending on how well received these videos turn out. Also, please no initial request, especially for Sonic Labyrinth. Is that fair to ask? Before we begin, it's time for the obligatory history lesson about Sonic's inception. Hey, I've got to prove my knowledge somehow, right? I'm sure you're behind whatever screen right now thinking to yourself, he could just easily read off the wiki. But that wouldn't be fun. I promise I'll make it quick. Nintendo was a global powerhouse, the industry savior, and a masterclass of gaming arising from the ashes that Atari arcades and ET had left behind in its wake. Because of Nintendo's dominance at the dawn of a new age of gaming, they had little to no real competition within the console space. So, imagine being Sega at this time and tasking yourself to produce a comparable, if not better product to market. And by the way, go look attempting to nip sales from the world's most popular plumber, that even after years of headbutting blocks or power-ups, continues to brush off any signs of cranial deficiency. Must be a steady diet of mushrooms. Psychedelics, am I right? Still recommending go see a doctor though, especially for his back. For the sake of hyperbole, he did single-handedly carry an industry before Sonic had arrived. Remember the 3 Ps, everyone. Practice proper posture. I'm aware this information can come off repetitive to the most diehard gamers, but I believe it is imperative to relay just how impactful Sonic the Hedgehog's June 23rd release in 1991 actually was. I mean, him and Mario did reshape the schoolyard banter that I found myself, and I'm sure many others had whilst growing up. Some editor's notes before I proceed. Unfortunately, I no longer own much of the original hardware that would be used to play the earlier games. I am aware there is subtle variations when it comes to the port quality. So for disclosure, I'll primarily be replaying the Genesis titles via Sega Mega Drive and Genesis Classics, which is available on Steam and other platforms. Again, the main focus of these videos is to share my personal experience and reflections on a franchise that I grew up loving. Of course, I'd also like to recommend you try out these games if you haven't already. They've only been out for decades. So, grab your chili dogs, red sneakers, and get ready to juice, jelly, and jam time as we go way back to the Sonic the Hedgehog. What I remember most is the impression Sonic left on me the first time I booted up my Genesis. Funnily enough, my first introduction to a Sonic game was Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and as I've gotten older, it appears to have been the same for others as well. It wasn't until several years later that I went back to experience what started it all. Even now, that iconic Sega chime just never gets old. What I like most about it is the fact that Sega has renditioned it in a variety of ways throughout the years. My favorite in particular being the Sonic 3D Blast version. The dude just sounds like a total lunatic, and boy do I love it. On the initial boot, we introduce now to Oshimo's design of Sonic. Doesn't a blue guy just come off as a total badass? Sonic's sleek design, in my opinion, perfectly illustrates his rebellious edge and punk rock attitude that at the time of release truly captured the essence of the 90s. Oshima-san's portfolio of characters that he's accumulated over the years has easily made me a fan of his work, and it is awesome to see he's back at it again with Yuji Naka, yet another Sonic Team alumni known for his development of the original game, on a newer title called Balan Wonderworld that clearly shares the DNA to nights and to dreams. From what I've seen of it so far, I can't wait to experience it next year, or would it be this year now? But yeah, let's get back to Sonic. On first appearance, we were shown some character acting through the animation on display to give us a sense of Sonic's personality. Notice how he wags his finger at the player like, "You aren't cool enough to play this game."
Who the fuck are you?
And the music accompanying our blue friend at the title screen makes the presentation really jump out at you. Until Sonic 3, where he's literally freaking jumping out at you. We aren't even in the game yet, but you know we're in for something special. So yeah, let's get right into that gameplay. The very first level of the game is Green Hill Zone, which, like all zones in the game, are split into 3 acts, with the last ending with the fight against Dr. Robotnik for the west, Eggman for the east. Personally, the level's appeal has waned a lot on me visually. I can thank Sonic Team's bordering fetish nowadays are reusing Green Hill Zone's design language in other titles as an easy culprit. There's only so much of a visual statement that green and brown checkerboard patterns can make before becoming stale. Hell, the pattern is even shared inside one of the coats I purchased during Sonic's 25th anniversary's Drop Dead crossover promo. By the way, just saying, if anyone out there has a medium or a large bomber jacket that they're willing to part ways with, please let me know. I'm more than willing to pay well over original asking price to complete my collection. E-begging aside, if there was one thing I'd like to kindly ask Sonic Team is, can we please get an intervention about the Green Hill substance abuse? Though, in retrospect, the vibrant color palette in combination to its surrealistic elements creates an environment that has rightfully earned its place in gaming iconography. Green Hill Zone is also a strong representation of what kind of platformer Sonic would be throughout its level design. We've got speedy segments that are used to showcase Sonic's unique character gimmick that I'm sure we've all become well aware of, and if you'd like to say it with me now, momentum-based platforming with an emphasis on speed. The reason as to why Green Hill succeeds as an amazing introductory level is because of how it delivers on the game's core aspects, a blueprint and design of sorts that will be shared to various degrees in later zones. One of these shared elements are littered obstacles throughout the stage that hinder your speediness of a zone. Boulders, spike traps, breakable and moving platforms, or even that annoyingly placed yellow or red spring are what I categorize as passive level hazards. Whereas the consequence of failing one of these hazards is more or less an addition to the game clock that, if it tallies up to 10 minutes, results in an insta-kill. God damn. Of course, this is a platformer, so running and jumping over obstacles isn't the only means of providing a sense of challenge. I feel it's appropriate now to finally mention the enemies of the game, that in this universe are referred to as badniks, robotic atrocities containing cute and cuddly critters Sonic must save from further harm. Though it is a bit strange that Sonic is more humanoid than they are. Let's not think too much about that. Green Hill's notable badniks that we still see in some current games are Crabmeat, Buzzbomber, Motobug, and Chopper. Am I missing someone? I call these lovable goons active level hazards, where they can directly affect the progress of a player, either as punishment for incorrect actions, or to keep them honest during their runs of a level, making sure they aren't just holding right to win, in theory. Though in later zones their placement can be deemed as cheap, as you'll see further in the video. But the first Sonic from its console rival Mario is the use and reimaginings of already established forms of movement that are found in most platformers. Obviously, moving left to right and jumping over or onto enemies aren't foreign concepts to 2D side-scrollers, but Sonic's advantageous nature of being a hedgehog led to a really cool spin for his movement at the time. His ability to roll into a ball and build up speed either through loop-de-loops or from barreling down hills is still a timeless act of fun. One of the best set pieces in Green Hill Zone is this one here, where you roll through a couple of tunnels and are then ejected to this ramp. That said ramp will then propel you into a series of rings. It is extremely satisfying if you can also hit the Buzz Bomber on the way down, because all of that built up momentum translates into bouncing even higher off of the poor sap. Set pieces like these are used primarily as a way to reach higher portions of stage, and are only awarded to players that are skilled enough to execute them. Doing so typically results in finding faster and safer routes throughout the majority of the zones. Sonic also has a unique health system that uses rings as a substitute for traditional hit points, because as long as you're holding onto at least one, you can survive indefinitely, unless of course you're given one of these, squashed or fall into a bottomless pit. So for the most part, all hazards in the game are designed in my opinion to hinder your momentum. Of course, players their first time wouldn't have the knowledge of the most optimal routes and levels, so I feel it is a purposeful decision of the designers for replayability's sake. At this time, Sonic's limited power-ups can be found in these TV monitors. Inside these said monitors are goodies like additional rings, a shield that allows for an extra hit without losing said rings, and even temporarily invincibility. A pretty standard affair. This is the first game though, so there are some legacy issues I faced when going back and replaying it, as can be said for any series of games. Remember earlier in the video I mentioned Sonic 2 was mine and many others' first game to the series? Well, because of how the title introduced Sonic's most iconic and amazing mechanic, the spin dash, unfortunately it is absent in this one. Not having access to it made some portions of my replay feel like a slog, as failing to ascend slopes and loops has me running back and re-attempting them at the appropriate speeds instead of being able to just stay in place and spin dash. Certain zones also made my playthrough feel a tad bit on the slower side. Marble Garden, Labyrinth, and the third after Scrapyard Zone, I'm sure is something everyone who's played through this title can relate to as being the lowlights. In regards to its pacing, what I do find interesting though is how it felt as if every other zone was speedier than the one before. For example, Green Hill, fast, Marble, slower, Spring Yard, fast again, Labyrinth, should I say more? Starlight, speeding, and again Scrapyard, which is a gauntlet of a stage. My only theory to explain the pacing of these levels possibly comes down to Sonic Team probably providing an olive branch to Mario gamers. Like, here's our style of platformer and this is your style of platformer, in order to illustrate a comparison, or maybe it was just to play it safe for being the first outing of the blue blur. Or I could just be reading too much into a damn near 30-year-old game. Whatever the case, it isn't hard to see as to why most levels are more memorable than others. If I could forget having to relive marbles, push block puzzles, and basic forms of platforming, I would. But Spring Yard's pinball bumpers, steep slopes, and half pipes are refreshing to experience after it. Of course, for a few platforming sections. After Spring Yard, you dive into Labyrinth, a slow, methodical zone that makes you realize why most water levels just suck. One of Labyrinth Zone's saving grace, though, is its terrifying Johnny theme. This theme should definitely be added next to Jaws as themes we don't want to hear while submerged in water. Starlight gets back on track. It feels better than it actually should. If I had to put my finger on it, this feeling could be due to coming after the suckfest of Labyrinth. This is actually a challenging zone that encourages players to execute certain loop-de-loops and speed segments for access to higher routes at the top of the zone. If you fail said zone segments, you're going a long way around while dealing with these assholes. The game then wraps up with the final zone scrapyard, a gauntlet that cranks up the difficulty in a meaningful, if sometimes questionable way. Note the enemy and hazard placement. I find myself just plowing through this zone in particular because I know Act 3 is an imposter for the 4th act of Labyrinth. Finally, we get to the good doctor himself for one last romp, and with 0 rings I might add. Better hope you have plenty of lives and continues, my friends. After he's defeated, you'll enjoy a good or bad ending depending if you had collected all 6, yes, all 6 of the Chaos Emeralds. How do you obtain said emeralds? All you have to do is make sure you grab 50 rings during the first 2 acts of the zone, hit the goalpost, and jump into this big ass one. You'll then be taken to this rotating hellscape to nab the emerald while also trying to abstain from motion sickness. These special stages aren't the most fun to complete and have definitely been replaced with better ones later in the franchise. But as a bit of a masochist, I had to get all the emeralds. I also just wanted to get that better ending. Just look at that smile. Well, that sums up Sonic the Hedgehog 1991. An awesome first outing for the Hedgehog that would solidify his influence in the gaming industry. And wait a minute, how can I finish things off without mentioning the music? Everyone on the block knows how major of a pillar music is for a Sonic game. That's why tracks like this in Forces just makes me so sad. My library alone of nearly 4,000 songs comprises mostly of Hedgehog tunes that I'd like to discuss more at a later date. But in regards to the first game, notable stage tracks are of course Green Hills with this poppy and lively melody, Starlight's chill and ethereal vibes that cap off with those synthesized trumpets, and easily the best track in the game for me personally, Spring Yard, with its farty Genesis bass, soaring and descending synths that just really get the booty shaking. Sonic the Hedgehog's jazz, pop, and club-inspired soundtrack is a surprisingly fitting soundscape for the Blue Blur's debut outing as a platformer. I can thank Sonic's genre-bending variety of tunes for my musical taste today. Wrapping things up, we have a history to look back upon that clearly illustrates that as a total package, the first Sonic game delivered on Sega's goal of being a compelling rival to Nintendo's Mario. Though as an experience to replay, I would advise you to be aware of the lack of spin dash and the dated level design of certain zones. I highly advise playing the Christian Whitehead version, Sega Ages version, or simply emulate it with spin dash enabled to speed things up. As being a solo act, this video took a lot longer than I had expected to create. I have the utmost respect to the community, and hopefully my future peers when it comes to long-form review style videos. As someone new into the scene, I ask you behind the screen that if you enjoyed what some no-name had to say about a furry blue critter, that you would show your support by either liking, sharing, or subscribing to the channel. I sincerely give you my thanks and can't wait to delve into a lot of classic fans' personal favorite, Sonic the Hedgehog 2.